The fight against the insurgency in northern Mozambique seems to be going in the right direction. Rwandan and Mozambican soldiers have recaptured control of the key northern port of Mocímboa da Praia from the rebels. Petroleum refining company Total Energies halted operations in the area due to the terror attacks just a few months ago. Now, Rwanda and the SADC region have deployed soldiers to assist Mozambique in fighting the terror groups there. South Africa is also part of that SADC force. Over 800,000 people have been displaced and more than 3,000 killed during this conflict that began in 2017. Well, to discuss the latest developments, Louw Vaudran from the Institute for Security Studies joining us now. Liesel, good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday View. Well, the conflict has escalated, if you want, for lack of a better word, if one can use that cliche. Since the Rwandans landed and SADC, we've seen visuals coming out of Mozambique shared by some Rwandan media, and I've been receiving some here in Johannesburg, and also by Rwandan soldiers themselves, how they are winning the war or making progress in the fight against the insurgency there. And lastly, Mocímboa da Praia, it's been recaptured.
Yes, afternoon, Dan. Yes, this last weekend, just a day or two ago, the Rwandans and Mozambican troops then recaptured the harbour, the airport. From the reports on the ground, you know, there are still pockets of the town and the district of Mocímboa da Praia that are still, you know, occupied by the insurgents. So it is very strategic. It's an important victory for the fight against this insurgency, because this harbour was the most important area that had been occupied now for a year, actually, since August last year by this insurgency. And that was the harbour, of course, and the port was a way that they could get supplies, mostly food supplies, etc., to this town.
Yeah. Now, destruction of the town. I mean, I've received, as I've said, some video clips from there. You could see that a lot there has been destroyed. But it is a harbour and a port of a strategic nature, not just in this battle to win back Cabo Delgado and stabilize the situation, but just economically for Mozambique.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in Cabo Delgado, there's the Palma, town of Palma that was you know, invaded in March this year, and then there's Mocímboa da Praia, and the capital of the province is Pemba, further south, where the SANDF actually is now being deployed. So Mocímboa da Praia is then on a strategic route also going northwards between Pemba and Palma. And as you say, really this issue is one of maritime security, because people get their supplies, and there's also some, you know, a lot of smuggling and so on going in that Mozambique channel. So whoever controls that Mozambique channel then, you know, can restore security to the area. And of course, as you mentioned, the big LNG projects, the Total and others that had to withdraw earlier this year, you know, they need that security to be re-established on the coast and on the on the shore and in the sea, basically on the Mozambican channel, before they can return and restart their activities. And that's the main aim at this stage of this Rwandan operation, at least this offensive operation, is to ensure that within a radius of 25 kilometers around where the LNG projects were started and then halted, that there's complete security to make sure that these projects can, you know, restart again. But of course, the biggest, most important issue is these 800,000 internally displaced people are in absolute dire crisis. I mean, living really a nightmare situation on many of the smaller islands off the coast. In Pemba, there are UN organizations that are trying to assist them, but now that you also, I mean, people are asking, right, you have the Rwandan forces now, what is SADC doing? Is it really necessary? We have South Africans, Botswana, the Angolans are there. You know, there could be many other areas where SADC can assist in terms of just helping the victims, you know.
Yeah, the humanitarian crisis is big. I mean, this is a big issue for Southern Africa. And we, South Africans, just neighboring Mozambique, we've got soldiers there. You know, we've got sons and daughters of the soil in uniform representing us, about 1,495 South African soldiers to be exact, who are there at a cost of 984 million rand, according to the President's response in a letter to Parliament just 2 weeks ago. So just before I forget this, Liesel, I saw a report coming out of Mozambique this weekend that some of the insurgents who are being repelled by the Rwandans and the Mozambicans have made their way back to Tanzania, where they've got a base. Do we know yet how much of a truth is that some of them have been based in Tanzania?
Yes, really there is no proof, and we have very little, evidence on the ground that they literally have a base there. It is true that of some of the insurgents that have been captured, even, way back a couple of years ago when this started, Tanzanians have joined this insurgency. And that's almost one of the reasons why it would logically be possible to contain this, where in other parts of the continent, for example, these insurgencies and these violent extremist groups continue to spread, is that the insurgency doesn't really have a base in another country, because Tanzania has really been quite forceful, also arresting people in southern Tanzania. Also, I mean, very concerning, I think, for Mozambique is some of the people who have been fleeing the violence have been sent back from Tanzania, because Tanzania doesn't want any instability also on its soil. And as sometimes happens in these conflicts, the IDPs and the refugees are accused of having been infiltrated by the insurgents. So there's really no proof on the ground that either Tanzania, is letting the insurgency or,
I guess that's good news, That's good news, because it's just across the Rovuma River there. Finally, Liesel, while I have you, before I let you go, in the letter to Parliament 2 weeks ago, President Ramaphosa said there are so many South African soldiers we've deployed as part of the SADC standby force, 1,495, at that cost of 984 million rand, but it's for a period of 3 months until October. Should we anticipate an extension of that?
Yes, I'm sure we can anticipate an extension. Perhaps the cost will not, with this huge investment, actually, President Ramaphosa won't have to ask again for extra funding, because it does look as if the Rwandans are there. There are about 300 Botswanan troops. Angola has sent a plane with some troops as well. Lesotho, a small contingent. So it's not as if South Africa is the only country assisting. And as I said, almost $1 billion South African rand is quite substantial. So it could be that this deployment can be prolonged, but that we are not going to, people are saying, okay, well, how much more is this going to cost? It can be that with all the other troops and the assistance that there is, that, the South Africa's contribution will then remain in terms of the existing troops on the ground, the armored vehicles that we saw. It was really quite, South Africa's contribution is substantial in this fight against the insurgency in Cabo Delgado.
Yeah, and that is why it's important for us in South Africa to keep track about what's happening. It's a big fight going on there. South Africa has, as you said, invested not just human resources on the ground with soldiers on the boots, but put a lot of money from the taxpayers, and it's got an investment there for the future. Thank you very much, Liesel. That's Liesel Louw Vaudran from the Institute for Security Studies. It is a big story, what's happening out there in northern Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado. You think it's far away. It's not really far away, just across the border to Mozambique, our neighbors. And we have our sons and daughters of the soil in uniform on the ground. They're fighting the insurgents, and it's costing you and me and I, as a taxpayers, 984 million rand to be part of that fight in northern Cabo Delgado, Mozambique. So it's important for us as South Africans also to be asking the right questions and tracking developments in that big fight taking place in northern Cabo Delgado province of Mozambique. Still